Hey everyone, it's Zack Beck. Workers have been quitting en masse over the last number of months. This is being deemed the Great Resignation in our society, and is thanks in large part due to the pandemic. That is because during the course of the pandemic, people were able to work remotely, have the ability to telecommute into the office, and many service industries such as hotel, retail, and even the food industries closed down during that time, so workers in those particular situations were able to reimagine what their life could be like in a different career field. In addition to that, what we are finding now is that employers are having a very difficult time attracting new employees while simultaneously trying to retain the employees they currently have. This is causing all sorts of issues throughout our society, and it's impacting our economy directly. So what I want to do in this video is break down in detail what is going on with the Great Resignation, how this could impact you directly, and if you're considering quitting your job, the specific steps you should be taking right now to make sure that you're secure in your finances long term, that way you can achieve your ultimate goals. So let's take our time, dive into the details, jump into it right now. As previously mentioned, many people are quitting their jobs right now, with a record 4.3 million people quitting their jobs in August alone. This is causing all sorts of issues throughout our society, and people are wondering what exactly is going on. So as I previously mentioned, this is being deemed the Great Resignation in our society, and that is because we are having a tectonic shift in our economy and also in our workforce, where people are able to reimagine what work looks like. If you consider for yourself, if you've served in the service industries, whether that's in the hotel, retail, or maybe even the food industry, it is a very difficult type of job to have, generally with lower wages and difficult working conditions. So when the pandemic occurred and these sectors shut down, employees had the opportunity to reimagine what their work life could look like. And many have taken this opportunity to consider other alternatives, whether that was doing something remotely or doing something online, maybe adjusting into a new career field. But many of the individuals who've actually quit, the record actually shows that they did not even have a next job lined up. And this is causing people to wonder what exactly is going on here and why is this happening? Now, I have a few thoughts on this. One thing we could consider is that obviously the pandemic was a very difficult situation for many people. It was emotionally, physically, and mentally draining, and this caused individuals to reevaluate what the purpose of life is and what the meaning of life is. And when you think about it from that vantage point, if you personally have been in one of those difficult positions, you might have been wondering how you could have potentially gotten out, and this could have shifted your thinking in that regard. And now we have people actually acting on that, and there's some benefit to that because hopefully they will be able to find a better career path moving forward. But simultaneously, when we think about our economy as a whole, we need to have various individuals in various jobs because that is basically how the economy functions. Now, it's not necessarily that someone should go into the service industry and continuously make that their long-term career, although that is not necessarily a bad thing if someone actually does so, but it provides a stepping stone for many individuals when you think about your entry point into the workplace. Now, that is also another thing for us to consider, is that the actual working conditions might not have been as good before the pandemic, and is causing employers to think differently about wages, about hours, and about overall conditions for their workers, whether that's offering employee benefits, better time paid off, etc. So all that to say, we are seeing a lot of shift going on right now, and it is causing us to see a very difficult dynamic occurring in the economy right now, where employers are having a very difficult time attracting employees. You've probably been driving around or gone around your own town that you live in, and you'll see help wanted signs just about everywhere. You might be asking yourself, is this a good thing for our economy? Now, I would say there is some good and some bad when it comes to this particular situation. When you look at it from the employee-employer relationship, right now employees tend to have a bit more leverage than they did before because they're a more valuable asset to the company. And because of that, we are seeing companies do the following. They are offering benefit packages, they're offering better hours, higher wages, and they're even offering signing bonuses to many individuals to come and actually work for them. Now, we could see this as a net positive because obviously the employee now has more resources coming into them, but then when we think about it in more of a macro scale, if the employer is going to have to pay higher wages, if they're offering more benefits and more hours and all of those different things, that generally will translate into maybe higher costs in different levels of service that these various companies can offer. So there are two sides to this coin, definitely. Now, I'm not here to say that we should always have these very difficult working conditions or anything to that extent, but what I am saying, as someone who's worked in the retail industry, who's worked my way up into different career fields, I think that it is important to understand understand that we want to have a balancing act between the employees and the employers. Now that is because many of the employers in our society are small businesses. They're not just these large corporations that many people think of when we think of billionaires flying around in private jets or going to space, and then we think of the individual working at the front end or the front line of their work when you think of Amazon or something like that. But ultimately what we have going on here is potentially more value being attributed to employees, which is necessarily a good thing, but hopefully it balances out in the sense where we don't see skyrocketing inflation or additional costs going up, because then what happens is if those employees now are making higher wages, but then the cost of living goes up across the board, it really eats into any sort of benefit that they're getting from that. So that being said, there is some issues going on here, and when we think about it, this is where the government actually starts to step in, and we see different arguments pivoting on both sides of the aisle, and that's what I want to talk about next. Now, before you make any hasty decisions and quit your job, be sure to hire the like button for the YouTube algorithm. I'm just kidding, but if you wouldn't mind tapping the like button, it would mean a lot to myself personally and help push this video to other people who might need to hear it, who might consider quitting their job at this present moment. So I hope this helps them, I hope this helps you, and if you wouldn't mind just helping me a little bit, tap that like button right now. Now, taking a step back, I think it's important to note a few things that did occur during the pandemic that really did split or deviate our political spectrum a bit, and we've seen different states take different tacts on this, and this might have been attributed to what's going on right now with what we're seeing in the Great Resignation. As we know, during the pandemic, the federal government offered enhanced employee benefits, and this is where someone, if they were actually going to be on unemployment, they would receive additional payments from the federal government in addition to the payments they were receiving from the state government. This actually ended up being about a $600 additional weekly payment that went to individuals from the federal government in addition to the unemployment they were receiving from the state. Now, this ended up being a bit more pay than most people actually received when they were working their jobs previously. So it really changed the dynamic for people to think financially as to how their money was coming in. And then during the course of the pandemic, as we do remember, many industries were shut down, so people who were taking in money obviously were able to save a bit more money. So it really changed the dynamic where people weren't necessarily living as much pay to paycheck as they were before. Now, from that vantage point, people have argued on one side where they say that having these enhanced unemployment benefits, although they were necessary in the early stages of the pandemic, might have created a sense of dependency from individuals long term and prevented them from wanting to go back into the workforce. Now, on the flip side, people will say that obviously we wanted to keep people safe during the course of the pandemic, so providing them with the resource they needed to pay their rent, to have food on their table, provide all their necessities was important so that way they didn't risk getting sick and also spreading the illness to other individuals. So I totally understand both sides of the argument here, and what we saw is that during the course of the pandemic, as it continued to unfold, we actually had various states stop offering that federal assistance to individuals and then encouraging people to instead go back into the workplace. Now, we've seen other states take a longer time in fading out in that regard, but just recently at the end of September of 2021, those unemployment benefits from the federal government actually started to go away, and now what we're seeing is individuals actually jumping back into the workplace. So we could see that individuals might have felt a bit more emboldened during the course of time when they had money coming in from the federal government, where they were more emboldened to want to quit their job and actually do something different or not necessarily pursue additional work. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing or it's a good thing, I'm just saying that's basically what was going on. So from that vantage point, we do have a different dynamic now going into the end of this year and into 2022, where it looks like these benefits aren't necessarily going to be available. But then when you think about what's going on with the Build Back Better agenda from President Biden and the debate going on between that social spending package, it looks like what we're having proposed from the Democratic Party is potentially different ways of getting money into individuals' pockets, and this could change the framework by which people actually consider what types of jobs or careers they pursue. So all that to say, there's going to be a hot debate going on in Washington, D.C. as to how to proceed in this regard, because businesses are striving to get workers, they're having a difficult time retaining those workers, and now we have the federal government simultaneously wanting to keep people safe from the variants and the illness, but also wanting to make sure the economy doesn't collapse. So it's this really delicate balance going on right now, and it is fascinating from my perspective to see what is going on. Now, if you're in a situation where you're considering the possibility of quitting, just like the millions of individuals who already have done so, I just want to throw up a few different cautions for you. That is because some of the individuals who've actually gone through the process of this Great Resignation actually left their job with not having another position lined up. Now, that could be necessarily a good personal step that someone takes if they're wanting to actually pursue their objectives and their dreams, but there is also an inherent risk associated with that. As I previously mentioned, if you had been relying on maybe something like the enhanced unemployment benefits, and then you were expecting to continue continuously receive those, just bear in mind that those did expire. So you're not going to have that steady stream of income coming in for not being able to work. So you're still going to have to pay your rent, pay your mortgage, put food on the table, have electricity, heating, cooling, all those kinds of things. So you want to make sure that you either have at least a safety net established yourself by having an emergency fund, like I talk about frequently on the channel, or you want to actually at least be pursuing, no matter what, an additional career field that you can pursue. And I understand if you want to have more flexibility, more time, you want to be able to work remotely, you want to be able to do something different, be able to exercise your creativity, you could be doing something that actually allows you to do so, but make sure you're going in a direction where you're going to be able to monetize that, where you're going to have some sort of income long term, because you want to make sure that you're able to still achieve your goals while paying all of your bills. In addition, you want to prepare yourself for the fact that if you're going into a new unknown territory where you don't have a job lined up and you're leaving a job that you've had previously, that you want to be careful about what impacts that could have on you emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically. Because when you leave the workplace, yes, there can be a freeing element associated with that, but generally speaking, humans are wired to at least be doing something on a daily basis. I'm not saying we're all meant to be robotic and just continuously work and never have any downtime. I do not mean that at all. I believe firmly in balance and moderation in our lives, and make sure that we have a balance between our work and life. But what I will say is that if you go on the other end of the spectrum, where you don't have the ability to be engaged or mentally engage yourself, it can have ramifications on your mental and spiritual and physical health. So just think about that. If you're going into this new territory where you might be leaving a job, think about what that actually looks like on a day-to-day basis for you, and make sure you're able to exercise your creativity, be able to engage your mind, engage your physicality, and do things that are going to keep you engaged in this world, because you don't want to just be Netflixing all day or doing anything like that, because that's not going to help benefit you. And obviously we as individuals want to benefit society and the world writ large, and that's why we do all these different things, exercising our creativity. So just a few things I want you to be aware of, but I also want to encourage you that if you are looking at this as a necessary step for yourself, because right now your mental, physical, or spiritual health is being detrimentally affected by your current working environment, obviously consider looking at additional alternatives. And that is because right now you do have more leverage in the marketplace. There are a slew of job openings available, so obviously you could pivot into a new career field that perhaps you didn't think about before. And that is something that could maybe engage you a little bit more, might put you on a better career trajectory where you could earn more resources, and that ultimately will benefit you so that you can achieve your financial goals, whether that's learning how to invest and maybe buying a home at some point in time, getting the type of car you want, or whatever it is that you specifically are looking to do, obviously in a very balanced way. You might be able to now achieve those goals by pivoting outside of a prior career field that you were in before. With all that being said, I'd like to thank you for watching the video today. If you wouldn't mind, please tap the like button for the YouTube algorithm, help push this video to other people who might need to hear it. In addition, if you wouldn't mind, please comment down below. I'd love to interact with you, get to know you, do any research on your behalf so that we can make well and wise informed decisions moving forward. Furthermore, if you wouldn't mind, please subscribe to the channel. That would mean a lot to myself personally, as I do everything I can to create positive content that makes positive impact in your life by encouraging you and myself to lead lives of meaning and purpose, all while maintaining balance and moderation. And if you do subscribe to the channel, please tap the notification bell. That will notify you every time I post a video, which I do on a weekly basis. Once again, I'd like to thank you for watching the video today. I hope you have a wonderful day. Talk to you next time.